Harmy, it's hard to believe. We've been chatting for the last 5 or 6 weeks. It's nearly here. It's nearly here, my friend.
It is. It's like I'm like a kid at Christmas Eve. I'm desperate for for Friday to come, and I can't wait. The World Test Championship just sort of whet the appetite, really, because do you know what? I thought that was a great game of Test cricket. I really did. I really enjoyed the India against Australia. It was a comprehensive win by Australia, no matter what the Indians say. There was a very good Test performance leading into the Ashes, and I can't wait for Friday to come. It's going to be interesting. I've got no idea which way it's going to go. I really don't. I'm sitting here now, Sam. I don't know about you, but I'm sitting here now thinking both teams could win 5-0. I really can make an argument that both teams can win 5-0 because there's all talk about Australia's bowling attack being too good for England, and this is something that England have never come across over the course of these last 13 Test matches under Stokes and McCullum. But you're going, if England win the toss and bat first on what looks a flat pitch at Edgbaston, and they score 5 and over and blow all the plans that Australia have got out of the water, you go, well, that's the best that Australia can throw at England. Wow, where do they go now? But then you flip that over and you go, well, if England bat first and on 30 for 3 because Cummins, Stark, Boland have got the ball in the right area, where do England's plans go? So there's a little bit of an argument that way, but I think that the contest between the two, the pressure of Ashes cricket, as you know, is so high and so intense that there are going to be good passages, there are going to be mistakes, and I think it's going to be too close to call, and it could be 3-2 either way, hopefully for England, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I want to talk to you a little more about where the right line and length is when you're bowling to England. But before we get there, I loved the World Test Championship. I thought it was a really good match at the Oval. But I wanted to touch on with you, Harmy. Australia did it in the first Test in India, where they didn't include Travis Head in the 11. Dire mistake, shocking mistake. To think that India didn't have Ravi Ishwan in their 11 to play in that World Test final is absolutely beyond me. Absolutely beyond me. Their top spinner can make a Test 50, has made, I think, a Test 100, fights like hell, proud Indian, and to think that side was going to be better served by a medium pace bowler than Ravi Ashwin in a World Test final bewildered me.
Yeah, I think it bewildered everybody apart from Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid and the Indian selectors, because this is not something new. This is something happened before in England. India have come to England before and gone, right, we only need one spinner, but because our spinner bats in the top 6, we really don't want to go and disrupt the balance of our attack because we think it's gonna seam, it's gonna swing, we're gonna need 4 seam options. So for me, I couldn't understand the Umesh Yadav argument. I really couldn't. So, and do you know what, Simon? More than anything else for R. Ashwin, I think he's a perfect character to play against Australia.
My word, because
he's a fighter. He's a scrapper.
Gets in your face.
Skin. He'd have a go.
Yeah,
he'd have a go. And if Australia have a go back, there's a little confrontation. He can sort of change the course of the narrative of where the game's going just by his body language alone, by getting in the batsman's face. We've seen him mankad in IPL cricket. He don't care about anything else other than winning. I just thought it was a monumental mistake to leave him out.
At the end of the day, a 209-run win for the Australians. They're crowned the World Test champions. That can only be a positive lead in to the Ashes. To be able to be as dominant against the so-called second best team in world cricket at Test match cricket, that's got to give the Australians plenty of confidence going into this series.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think when you go into big series like the Ashes, the team that goes in with, you would say the most confidence, the most momentum, with, everything going in the right direction leading into the series, they tend to get the rub of the green. But I'm not sure who's got the most of that at this minute in time, because England are 11 wins from 13 and Australia the world champions at Test match cricket. So I think that's how evenly poised that these sides are. When I look at last week, the right components are doing the right things. Bowlers put the ball in the right areas, created chances. I know there was a couple of drop catches, but some unbelievable catches, and I still think Cameron's green catch was out. Anybody that's played the game will understand that the catch at third slip was out. His fingers were underneath the ball. No matter what any picture tells me, I haven't played the game, I think that's out. And the key components in that middle order have got runs, Labuschagne, Smith and Head. And the way Head got runs, I think would encourage if I was an Australian fan, because there are going to be times during these next 5 Test matches, if England do get away from Australia, i.e. the run rate, and have a big score, that Head is going to be so key, because he's probably the one that catches that run rate up in that middle order. And to see him get 163 in that first innings shows you that not only is he in good touch, his tempo was very, very good, especially for somebody who, I think he's had a great last 18 months in international cricket, but he had a real struggle in England a year ago, or a year and a bit ago, when he was here with Sussex. So that would be something from a mind perception, that it just gets that, wrench off his back. That last time I was here, I struggled for Sussex, but the first time I've gone in a World Test Championship final, I've got over 150 runs, bring on the Ashes.
I think, from a bowling point of view, it was good to see Australia's frontliners probably, just get the work out they needed. Scotty Boland was Scotty Boland. He hits the top of off more times than most, and Mitchell Starc, swung them around a bit, was probably a touch on the rusty side, as I thought Pat Cummins was, and then the off spinner Nathan Lyon. He just keeps on being Nathan Lyon and getting wickets. 5 wickets in the Test match. How did you see the Aussie bowlers before we head into that Australian batting line, in particular the top 2 in Khawaja and Warner, Harmy?
I think Khawaja and Warner would be a concern, if I was brutally honest, from an Australian point of view. That not so much because the runs that they didn't get, the mode of dismissals that they were out, playing away from their body. They're going to come up against the best ever exponent of moving a batsman across the crease and getting them in a position to play away from their body, and that's James Anderson. So it was the mode of dismissals more than anything else, playing far too loose outside off stump. Warner in the second innings tried to cut half volley, and I nicked it straight to behind. And so the pressure that's on David Warner, and Khawaja's been unbelievable in the last 12 months. So that would concern me a little bit. I thought the bowlers bowled, they got overs under their belt. Then Cameron Green, he could be the point of difference in this series. He really could. I think he is go back to 2005, we had a world-class all-rounder. Australia had Shane Warne, which meant that Australia never really needed that fifth bowler. I think Cameron Green could be the point of difference to make that fifth bowler count in 5 Test matches over 6.5 weeks for recovery time to get Cummins, especially Cummins, because Cummins is going to have to play all 5. I think that fifth bowling option could be possibly the tipping point in the sort of bowling side of the series between the two sides. But where Hazelwood fits in, I think he fits in at Lords for me, because you can't drop Scott Boland, even though he bowls at the top of off stump. And England enjoy that. Somebody that bowls same place all the time. I think England will try and take him on that front, and you could see England trying to sort of reverse sweep him. You can scoop him, and you can see them trying to cut him off length, pull him off length. I still think Boland has to play in that first Test match at Edgbaston.
It's going to be really interesting, from a bowling point of view. And I mentioned a little earlier, Harmy, what is the length? What is the line? I mean, the length and line that Scott Boland bowls day in, day out is top of off stump. He's one of the best exponents of it in world cricket. He just keeps delivering it time in, time out. If you had to go to a plan B against a batting lineup that are doing things differently, like England will bring to the table, what is that length and line to a Bazball top order?
I don't so much think it's a length and line, Simon. I think it's the field settings. You've got to think outside the box with this England team. You run up and bowl line and length for 3 slips in a gully, you could go at 7, 8 and over because they'll try and cut you off your length. They hit balls in areas where in a test match, you don't have conventional fielders. So I think that's what I mean by, so you could run and bowl half volleys at this England team and get wickets if you've got fielders in the right place. Starve them from the boundaries, cut off their scoring options. You could see a team with, a relatively new ball them with 1 slip because it's not going there.
Yeah.
Scott Boland runs up bowls line and length with 3 slips in a gully. Tim Southey did that in New Zealand. And Tim Southey's not as quick as Scott Boland, nowhere near as quick as Scott Boland. But Joe Root, second ball, third ball of the morning, reverse swept him over the top of third slip's head. And Tim Southey's looking in amazement. And then all of a sudden, if that bowler doesn't quite go to get right plan B or get to that point where quick enough, he could be 20 off 3 overs and the captain's going, well, can you continue doing this? So, and that's what I mean, where I know Steve Smith said during the week, and he's right, that this England Bazball has been brilliant for Test cricket, but they haven't played against our bowling attack. You could also look at it and flip it over and say, this bowling attack hasn't come against England. And if England get off to that good start, where do their plan B? And I think a lot of the plan B is more, it's not the lines and lengths you bowl, it's the fields that you set to then starve the boundaries, to then keep that pressure on England and stop them from hitting boundaries. If they do that, then England might find a way to get themselves out.
Been lots of debate leading into this first Test match and the World Test Championship for that matter of whether it's a Boland in the pace lineup or it's a Hazelwood in the pace lineup. I must admit, I'm a Boland fan just through what he's done. He's staying on the park, and Josh Hazelwood, as fantastic as he has been over the journey, he just, look, his record over the last 3 or 4 years with injury, there's got to be that question mark going into a Test match, particularly an Ashes Test match, whether that is the right way to go, particularly with a fit Scott Boland that is ready and raring to go. And, well, I'm not sure whether Scotty Boland's fully convinced that he's the man for the first Test. I know he wants to be there. Whether he thinks he will be there, I'm not 100% sure, particularly with the answer he gave when he was asked what his chances are of retaining his spot for that first Test at Edgbaston.
I haven't even thought about it, to be honest. I think, I just got to keep doing my role and playing, trying to keep taking wickets and then try and make the selector's decision as hard as possible.
Do you sort of feel like you have made that decision as hard as possible? Like, could you have done any more to push selection realistically? Oh,
hopefully. I'll probably have to speak to them.
Speak to them. He's just a guy. He's unfazed, just gets about it, loves the team aspect of it. He'll do what he needs to do, and if his name's there, he'll come in and do what Scott Boland does, Harmy. Yeah,
and I think it was a bog standard answer for leading into one of the biggest series that you'll have. I don't so much think I've changed my mind the last few sort of days. I don't think it's so much Scott Boland against Hazelwood. I think it might be Hazelwood against Stark. I think that would be the issue. And then do you have 3 bowlers that are sort of more line bowlers, deck bowlers? You need Mitchell Stark's variation. I'd play Hazelwood at Lords. Do you need a swing bowler at Lords? I think you could play 3 line bowlers and 3 deck bowlers at Lords. Cummins, Boland and Hazelwood using the slope, that would be in your favour. And then that's how I would get Hazelwood into the series. And then Josh's body will dictate whether he plays in tests 3, 4, 5 or 4 and 5 or just 4. And I think because you're going to have to rotate, because you're going to have to use bowlers wisely over the course of these next 6 weeks in 5 test matches. Bear in mind, your captain's going to have to play all 5. That's the way I'd look at it. I don't think you can drop Scott Boland. You've just won the World Test Championship final by 209 runs, which is a comprehensive win. As long as they're all fit and firing and they all feel fresh enough, I think you throw them back out at Edgbaston and try and get one up on England. That would be my way of looking at it. And if I was looking to get Hazelwood in, you look at what McGrath did at Lords for a lot of years. He's probably the closest that Australia's got to a Glenn McGrath with the way he gets close to stumps. He bowls, close to off stump from a tall release point. That's how I'd get Hazelwood into the series and leave him for Lords.
Yep, no, it's going to be very interesting. We don't have to wait long. We don't have to wait long. Prediction time on the eve of the first Test match. Who wins and why?
I'm going to go England 3-2. I think it's going to be a close series. I said at the top of the show, I could make argument that both sides could win 5-0 because if England continue to play this baseball way of hitting bowlers off their length, scoring round the ground 360, if they can do that in the first Test match, then all this, wow, we've not done it against our bowling attack. Australia, for me, have the best bowling attack in world cricket at the minute. And if all of a sudden England are 350 for 3, 350 for 4 at lunchtime on tea time on day 1, having just really gone hard at it, you scratch your head and go, well, if this is the best Australia have got to offer, wow, where do they go from here? And then you flip that over and it could happen, a bit like the Steve Smith, kind of do it against our bowling attack. If the coming Stark and Boland blow England's top order away and England are 50 for 5 at lunchtime on day 1, the consequences of that for me from an England's confidence point of view will be dented. England will still come hard at it, but if all of a sudden the series starts going on and the Australian bowling attack can do what they can do, then you go and wow, where do England change their mindset? Do they change their plans? Do they change a hell of a lot of things like we always see many times before during the 90s and the early 2000s with England against the likes of Warne and McGrath? Then you can see Australia winning the majority of the Test matches. But I think with the pressure that's on, 2 sides evenly matched, I think it's going to be a great contest, and I'm going to back my boys 3-2.
Well, I'm not favouring either side. I'm going with a 2-all level end of the series. I'm going with a washout at Headingley. only time I've ever been to Yorkshire, it's been pissing down, and I expect it to be exactly the same. So wash out Headingley and 2-all. That's where we're going to end up.
Yeah. You could, I can see 4-day Test matches, 5 4-day Test matches. I really can. And so if the weather stays, which the forecast is quite good for the long term, I can't see games going into day 5. I really can't. And if they do and the sun's out, then I think then that brings Australia into play, because I think the point of difference in this series, possibly the 5th bowler in Cameron Green, but if it's dry and it stays and it goes to the latter part, then Australia have got a world-class spinner. And that could be the point of difference if the game goes in a long period of time. Because no matter what England plans have been against spin in the past, Nathan Lyon is a world-class spinner and he still performs at the highest level under immense pressure. So that, if it goes into day 5, then I think Australia are now more in the contest.
Most runs?
I'm going to go Joe Root is the most runs.
Of course you are. The obvious.
Obvious, yes, but I think England need their talisman batter to score more runs than Labuschagne and Smith, because I think if Labuschagne and Smith score at a high, at a high rate, then I'm not sure we've got 2 that can do that. So that means our best's going to have to outscore them 2, and I think that would be Joe Root. So for me, for England to win, Joe Root's going to have big player of the series.
I think Travis Head's going to have a blinder, particularly coming off his 100 to give him that confidence with what he did at the Oval against India in the World Test Championship. So from a most runs point of view, I'm going to go with my man Travis Head. Most wickets, Harmy?
Pat Cummins for the most wickets. I think he's probably one of the only bowlers that's going to play all 5, other than Nathan Lyon. And I think, for me, he's the best bowler in world cricket from a seam bowler's point of view. But I'm intrigued to see how he goes body off the back of the World Test Championship and then these 5. And mentally, if England do get on top, not only has Pat Cummins got to bowl 22, 23 overs in an innings, he's got to marshal what potential carnage England could throw at Australia, which could be 4, 5, 6 and over during a small passage or a large passage of play. That mentally could just have an effect on the Australia captain. But if he gets it right, for me, he's the best bowler in this series, and he's going to one that's going to play all 5. So I'll go Pat Cummins.
I'm tipping a draw here as well. Most wickets at the end of the series. Mitchell Starc and Ollie Robinson. I think they'll both have somewhere probably about 31 to 32 wickets each. That's what I'm predicting. Yeah. So there you go, Starc and Robinson as my leading bowlers of the Ashes series of 23. The player of the series, the all-important player of the series, the person that could be decisive here in his side winning or losing. Who's that for you, Harmy?
The former England captain who had an absolute rough ride, the last Ashes series. I think he'll want to put everything like that right. And I think he will be the man of the player of the series, and that would be Joe Root. And I think England, if they want to win, they're going to have somebody to hold them all together. And for me, Joe Root, since Ben Stokes has took over the captaincy, he's had a little bit of a new lease of life. He's got that twinkle back in his eye, that cheeky chappy smile again. So for me, for England to win 3-2, my man Joe Root's going to have to be player of the series.
I'm going with Alex Carey. The reason I'm going with that, because I think Starc will get a lot of the guys caught behind the wicket.
Yeah.
As Bucky Rogers has said to us tonight, trying to play a little bit late, they're pushing forward a bit bang. I think that brings him in from a fielding perspective and taking a lot of catches. And as long as he locks that reverse sweep away, I think he's been batting brilliantly well over the last 6 months. And I think he'll know what to do here in the UK. He knows what his test match protocol is to take out into the middle. And I think he's going to make a lot of really valuable runs. So there you go. I think Alex Carey's going to be the one. And I'd be very surprised if we got any of those right, Harmy. But it's been a hell of a good time the last 5 or 6 weeks chatting to you on the road to the Ashes. I wish you well. I wish your team well because it's been a hell of a lot of fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed working. I hope everybody in Australia has enjoyed listening to me as much as they enjoyed watching me bowl in Australia because it was an absolute shower. So on that, I just wish everybody a great Ashes series, whether it's the middle of the night or you get up to watch the highlights. The one thing that will be totally evident is that this is going to be 2 colossal sides going head-to-head like we've done over the last few weeks, Simon, and make the best team win.
Yep, certainly is. I agree with those sentiments completely. May the best team win. Thanks, of course, to Australian Made for their support, to Scotty Taylor, Jonathan Norman over there from TalkSport, to Julian Marcus and Mitch Scott here at SEN. The Ashes, of course, they start Friday. You'll hear every ball on SEN and the SEN app. This has been Road to the Ashes. Thanks to Australian Made. Enjoy the series. We'll catch you next time.